Good morning and welcome back to the Football Terrace. It's the Done Deal Show. I'm here with Peter O'Rourke. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Terry, how are you?
I'm very well. Enjoying the Euros so far?
Yeah, it's been a good tournament so far. Been quite impressed with the home nations, obviously, apart from Scotland, who got off to a disappointing start. But England got off to a winning start, and also Wales got a big win against Turkey. So it looks like they'll be progressing to the knockout stages. But yeah, hopefully England-Scotland will be a cracker of a game as well.
Yeah, that will be a fiery affair, no doubt, on Friday. And it's what I'm really happy about is it's going to be not cold but mild, a bit of rain in the air, sort of traditional sort of British settings. So neither team is going to be suffering like sort of playing in 30-degree sweltering heat. So there'll be no excuses. It's going to be an excellent affair. And of course, the Euros is kind of getting in the way at the moment of everybody's favorite time of the year, which is the transfer window, which I think you'll know as a sort of journalist who's been around, for a long time with places you've worked at. It's almost become a bit of a sort of mini industry within football itself in many ways, in terms of the sort of the level of focus and attention that's placed into it, and fans are definitely bought in. And there is still quite a lot going on behind the scenes. I know today we're gonna touch on some of the things at Chelsea, Man United, some of the big moves with the likes of Varane and Sergio Ramos now confirming that he's leaving Real Madrid. But I wanted to start off with Arsenal this morning because every day it's a new link to a new player in some way, shape or form. Yesterday, I know we'll touch on this later, James Maddison sort of came out of nowhere around 6:30 yesterday that they're linked with him as an example. There was the Ben White bid we'll touch on as well. But I wanted to start with Ruben Neves. It was a deal a week or so ago that really reared its head, went a little bit quiet. But what's the current situation surrounding Ruben Neves and Arsenal Football Club?
Yeah, from my understanding is Ruben Neves really figures highly on Arsenal's wanted list this summer. I think that's helped by the fact that Wolves are willing to sell the Portugal international. Obviously, Wolves didn't do as well last season as they have in previous seasons in the Premier League, and there's going to be big changes at Wolves this summer. We've already seen Nuno leave as manager, and I think he was quite key for Ruben Neves. He helped attract him to the club in the first place. He was a key lieutenant for Nuno when he was in that Wolves midfield. And as I said, I think Wolves maybe have a few financial problems as well, so they're going to have to cash in a few players, not just Neves. Talk of Traore possibly leaving as well, and maybe Neves has seen this cycle is coming to an end now at Molineux. They obviously lost Diego Jota last season to Liverpool as well, which was a big blow to the club, and they really struggled to replace him. So maybe Neves is thinking now, I need to move for the good of my career to a bigger club to be challenging for trophies and playing in European football, because he's a classy player. He's played at the highest level, and he's away with Portugal at the Euros right now. So he's probably mixing it with those international teammates, and they're all telling him probably about what their plans are for next season at all the top clubs. So he'll be thinking, I want to be a part of that. And I think there'll be a lot of clubs in for Neves, probably available for between 35 to 40 million. And as I said, Arsenal are probably at the front of the queue right now to sign him. I think we all know Arsenal are looking for midfielders this summer. Probably quite a few going to be offloaded. The likes of Guendouzi, who was out on loan last year, Lucas Torreira, who was out on loan. They'll be looking to sell him. Obviously, there's lots of rumours that Granit Xhaka could possibly leave the Emirates as well this summer to Roma. And I think he probably will end up leaving as well. And then also Dani Ceballos, who was on loan from Real Madrid, has gone back. So I think midfield is going to be a key area for Mikel Arteta this summer to strengthen his squad. And I think Ruben Neves will be the perfect fit, him in there alongside Thomas Partey. To me, that's got the makings of a good-looking midfield.
I think it certainly does. And Ruben, I was very fortunate. It's a warped story, but I say warped, it's just out there, I suppose. I opened Ruben Neves' bank accounts when he moved to the UK. That's what my old job was for the Barclays Private Bank International. And what you said there about Nuno being the drive is exactly what it was. Questioned him. So why Wolves out of all the clubs you were linked to this summer? And he was linked to a lot of big clubs back in, I want to say it was the summer of 2017. It might have been 2018. It was one of those two. And he just said, Nuno, I wanted to play for Nuno. So I'm not surprised that he's now looking to move on with that kind of run at Molineux coming to an end. There are a lot of other midfielders linked to Arsenal as well. So one where there was a bid rejected a couple of days ago for Sambi
Lokonga.
Lukanga. The big reports are that Arsenal will go back in. They're currently in negotiations. I heard yesterday within the next sort of 24 to 48 hours there could be another bid. That sounds like it's likely to happen. Do you look at Arsenal? Do you think they'll recruit at least 2 players in that midfield this summer? Because I see a lot of Arsenal fans sort of debating on social media. No, if we get Neves, that means no Basuma, nobody else. If we sign Lokonga, that means it. Nobody else is coming in. What do you see happening in that space with all the other midfielders they're linked to as well?
Yeah, I think they probably need 2 midfielders. As I mentioned, all those midfielders that are probably going to leave the club this summer don't really figure in Mikel Arteta's plans. That'll bring a few funds into the club to maybe use to buy these signings. I think the problem is for Arsenal, no European football this year for the first time in 25 years, which has been a big blow. That's going to affect their finances. They're not cash rich like the likes of Manchester City or Chelsea. They just can't go out there and spend lots of money. So if they were to get a Ruben Neves for 35 million, maybe 40 if they had to go that high, I think that might end their interest in Yves Bissouma, which will be a big disappointment for a lot of Arsenal fans. And I think that's maybe why they're looking at Lukanga at Anderlecht. He's 21. He's a very promising young player, maybe one for the future that Arsenal see that they could develop into a top player, maybe like a bit of a Patrick Vieira. He's that style of player, all action, powerful midfielder. But 21, been playing in Belgium, he might need a bit of time to adapt to the Premier League if he was to arrive at the Emirates. So I see him maybe as potential for the future for Arsenal. While if Neves, he's a ready-made replacement to go into that midfield, replace Dani Ceballos, a bit of a playmaker in the centre of the park for Arteta's side. And I think he's a Mikel Arteta type of player, maybe quite similar to what Arteta was as a player, just good on the ball, can score long-range goals as well, and can dictate play, which is what Arsenal have missed in midfield probably over the last few years.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it makes sense, as you say. They've got this budget. I think they're looking at one player, as in it's if they can get. I think they're looking at Basuma. I think they're looking at Ruben Neves, as you've mentioned. He's a priority based on what you've heard and what you've been told in that area. It's one of that kind of echelon of sort of 35, 40 million pound player, and then you have Lokonga that's slightly younger, a little rawer, a little bit cheaper that's coming in as that additional backup, especially with links to at least 2 Arsenal midfield players leaving. Plus, in all due respect to Arsenal's midfield, barring Partey, none of them are good enough to move Arsenal forward anyway. So they definitely have to recruit heavily in that area.
Yeah, if they want to close the gap on the top 4 and get in amongst the Champions League places again, I think your engine room's probably the key part of the team that you need to strengthen. Even Thomas Partey, there was a lot of hype surrounding his arrival from Atletico Madrid, and I'm sure some Arsenal fans would probably agree he probably didn't hit the heights that were expected of him last season. Maybe that was because of the players around him, that he didn't play as well as people were expecting. But I think with a Ruben Neves in there beside him, if it's not a Neves, a Basuma would definitely help bring out the best in Thomas Partey as well, because Arsenal obviously went to a lot of trouble to sign him from Atletico Madrid last year. It was quite a protracted transfer, but they finally got their man. But yeah, I just think we all know, as Arsenal fans know, since the days of Vieira and Petit, the midfield hasn't been the same at all. So they're desperate for that man to come in and fill the void and help spearhead Arsenal's challenge for trophies again.
Yeah, absolutely. And a player that was 2 players that were heavily linked yesterday, lots of news surrounding them. First of all, Ben White, this rejected £40 million bid. Is it your understanding as well that they will go back in for Ben White with an improved offer?
Yeah, my understanding is this isn't the end of it. This is probably just the start of Arsenal's pursuit of Ben White. As you said, £40 million for the Brighton defender is quite a big opening offer for him, but Brighton, I think, are holding out for maybe 50 million plus for him. He had a very good debut season in the Premier League last season for the Seagulls. Very highly rated. We all know how well he did at Leeds the season before last on loan, when a lot of big clubs were looking at him as well. I think Leeds maybe had 3 bids rejected for him as they were desperate to make that move permanent, but Brighton saw the potential in him. They wanted to keep him, but I just think he's maybe outgrowing Brighton right now. He's been called into the England squad for the Euros. My understanding is he's been telling his England teammates on international duty that he really fancies this move to the Gunners as well. So that's going to give Arsenal hope that they can get this deal done. And I wouldn't rule out Arsenal maybe offering some players in exchange to try and get this deal over the line, because Ben White, one of the most sought-after young defenders in the country, I think he'd be a perfect fit for Arsenal, and a position, again, they need to fill.
Yeah, I find interesting it's how kind of player stock changes. So a year ago, I was on a few Liverpool channels, the LFC Day Trippers, with the likes of Grizz Khan, and they were talking about Ben White, and he was being raved about in Liverpool quarters because they were heavily linked with him. And I saw lots of fans excited about him. Oh, this kid, he looks talented. He looks like he could be, X, Y, or Z. The season goes by, and by the end of the season, he was almost a commodity that fans on social media were like, oh, Ben White, almost sort of turning their nose up at the idea. I actually think he could be a much better signing for Arsenal than many Gooners expect, if that makes sense. I actually think that I think he's a lot better than he's being given credit for. And 50 million odd pounds, as you've mentioned, is a sizable investment into a player, even in this current era. But Bielsa, highly touted manager, wants him. Jurgen Klopp scouted him for at least 18 months. So, he's in good company in terms of teams that have looked at him in recent times. In relation to another England player, of course, not away with England right now, James Maddison. This for me, came out of nowhere yesterday. We know that Arsenal have been looking at creative midfielders as well as sort of holding and sitting midfielders. They tried to sign Emi Buendia, didn't happen. Martin Odegaard is very likely to stay at Real Madrid. What's your understanding of the James Maddison deal? There seems to be definite interest. Is that something that you think Arsenal are going to be able to pull off this summer?
I'm not surprised by the interest, Terry, to be honest. I did a story last year that Arsenal were very keen on Maddison. He was quite high up on their list of targets. Obviously, it didn't happen last summer for various reasons. So the interest has always been there. Mikel Arteta is a fan of Maddison, and we all know Maddison on his day is probably one of the best playmakers in the Premier League. He had an up and down season last season with Leicester with injury problems, but he came back, helped him win the FA Cup, and it would have been a big blow for Maddison to miss out on that Euro squad. So maybe in the back of his mind, is he thinking, no disrespect to Leicester, do I need to be at a big club so I can showcase my talents and maybe catch the eye of Gareth Southgate? And maybe is Arsenal going to be that option for him? On this flip side of that, I just can't see Leicester selling him this summer. They've obviously had a great season under Brendan Rodgers again, winning the FA Cup, just missing out in the top four. I don't think they'll be too keen to lose James Maddison because he's a key player for them when he is fit as well. And if Arsenal are looking to try and sign him, you're probably looking at 60 million, maybe 70 million to prize James Maddison as well. So, and I don't think Arsenal have got that money. I just think Arsenal right now, as you mentioned, looking for that creative spark in the team. Martin Odegaard going back to Real Madrid after his loan spell, and it looks like he will stay at the Bernabeu for next season. While I think, again, it was a big blow to lose out in Emi Buendia to Aston Villa. Probably most Arsenal fans thought, if we're up against Aston Villa for this player, we'll get him, but it didn't work out that way. And Buendia ended up going to Villa Park. But I think it's going to be more disappointment for the Gunners because I just can't see James Maddison moving this summer.
It's interesting. One of the and this could be social media based, and we know that sometimes these things get lost in translation. There was a rumor that he's fallen out with Brendan Rodgers, and that's how the deal could be plausible. And I thought to myself, that's fair. If he's fallen out with Rodgers and he wants out of Leicester, and Arsenal are one of the only clubs in for him, then I can see it happening. The problem is, Emi Buendia should be almost a bit of a sobering thought in the back of the minds of a lot of Gooners that if somebody else then goes, actually, well, I fancy a bit of Maddison, and they're in a better position, higher up in the league, they're in Europe, they're in the Champions League, it's going to be very difficult for Arsenal to compete for those players, which is one of the reasons they've almost feels like they've got this scattergun approach of going after 3 or 4 central midfielders, talking to a number of attacking midfielders, because they're just not sure who they can get. You had Onana, the goalkeeper, was linked with a move to them. And then out of nowhere, 2 or 3 more clubs come looking, and it's almost like Arsenal get pushed to the back of the queue. And I'm not wishing to sound disrespectful to Arsenal. It's just that element of where they actually find themselves in the current climate of football.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Terry, because as you said, Arsenal can't offer European football to these transfer targets this summer, which they've always used to be able to do. It used to be under Arsene Wenger, they were guaranteed to be in the Champions League. And obviously, we all know Champions League football is a massive pull for players when you're trying to sign them as well. But yeah, Arsenal struggled in the Premier League last year. You're thinking, why would James Maddison swap Leicester for Arsenal right now? Leicester seem to be on an upward curve, while Arsenal maybe downward curve, with no disrespect to the Gunners. I think Leicester see themselves as being probably closest to break into that top four rather than Arsenal right now as well. So, as I said, scattergun approach from Arsenal, which isn't the normal Arsenal way, who've always been respected over the years of how they've conducted themselves, how they've gone about their business and set up their transfer targets. But yeah, I think Mikel Arteta probably has his work cut out this summer to try and lure some of those targets to the club this summer, because
yeah,
their form's not been great. There's no European football, and I don't think their finances are in a great state either. So yeah, it's a real difficult sell for Arteta this year.
absolutely. Neeks here, who's one of our presenters on the show, says, I think he's responding more to the comments in the comment section. He says, if Brighton rejected 40 million for Ben White, no way Maddison is going for less. Because if you have never seen Leicester in business. He's talking to obviously the viewers, and that's true. I mean, there are a few Arsenal fans in the comments saying he's not worth more than 40, 50 million. I think I always say to viewers in these circumstances, it doesn't matter what you and I rate a player at. It's what the market dictates. And in this current era, when you're looking at Grealish being touted at 80, 90 million, there is just no way James Maddison is going for anything less than, I think 60 would be the lowest he would go for at this moment in time. Even if he's fallen out with Brendan Rodgers, Leicester are not just going to let him go to a rival club for 30, 40 million pounds. It isn't going to happen. I really don't think so. Viewers, do us a favor, please, and smash that like button while you're watching. If you're watching on Twitter, please give this a retweet. If you're watching on Twitch, make sure you hit that follow button. Any questions you have, I was about to say any questions for me. Today isn't about me. Pete's here with us, industry expert. If you've got any questions, get your member chats in or your super chats in, and we will pose them. Can't guarantee there's going to be an answer that you're going to like or no, because as informed as Pete is, I'm sure he doesn't know about every single intricate transfer and every single detail at every single club. But we will pose the questions and see if we can get you some answers. So get those super chats into us if you can, ladies and gentlemen. In this sort of other way, keeping it in London at the moment, Chelsea are looking at some really interesting business. There is, of course, Lukaku and Haaland that they're talking to, that they're trying to move things on with. One of the deals that kind of spearheaded last week was Hakimi. There's been a bid that was, first of all, rejected. Personal terms reportedly not going to be an issue. Hakimi wanting to join Chelsea. Yesterday, there was a report of a second and an improved bid that included Marcos Alonso being part of the deal. What's your understanding of the current transfer situation at Chelsea? And if we start with Hakimi.
Yeah, Hakimi, we all know, definitely a top target for Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel. We all know about the financial problems that Inter Milan find themselves in right now. And it looks like Hakimi will be sacrificed by the Italian champions to try and raise some funds. They are holding out for around 70 million euros for the Morocco international. Chelsea so far, I think, have bid around 60 million euros plus that offer of Marcos Alonso. I think if I was a betting man, I think this deal will get done. I think he will be a Chelsea player come the start of next season as well. I just think Inter's financial problems mean they can't hold out too much longer for any bids that come in for this defender. And I think Hakimi, from my understanding, is very keen to come to the Premier League as well. He's a talented player. He's at Real Madrid. He had a great couple of seasons on loan at Borussia Dortmund, and then went to Inter Milan last summer and had a really good season for them, helping them win the title. I think he got from wing-back 7 goals and 8 assists, I think, for Inter Milan. So he's a talented player, and I just think if Chelsea were to get him, it strengthens them in those wing-back positions. Whether it means Reece James will continue to play as a part of a 3-man backline, I'm not too sure. It'll be an option for Thomas Tuchel to have if he's got Hakimi in his side. The main competition for this one, Terry, for Chelsea seems to be from Paris Saint-Germain. They've also bid for Hakimi as well, and we all know they've got the money to spend big if they need to. So it looks like it's a straight battle between Chelsea and PSG, but I just think Chelsea might have the edge in this one, probably with the option of a player exchange to Inter Milan, and I think that might just get this deal done.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's that. I get the sense that Hakimi is quite interested in living in London, playing in the Premier League as well. It's look, Paris is an amazing city. There's no way you can, especially in the sort of the areas of Paris that very wealthy football players would live. You know, it's a beautiful part of the world. I just think the competitiveness of the Premier League, the brand that is the Premier League, is such an attraction right now. We're dominating Europe. There's no doubt about it. You know, we've got the most amount of players at the Euros, I believe. I read that stat. I haven't fact checked it, but I read that somewhere. So I think it's a massive draw for him. The other major transfer at Chelsea, the Haaland deal, will keep rearing its head. There's the thought is hard to get done. There was reports of personal terms being either agreed or signed off, depending on. And you'll know this being having been a sort of sports journalist for such a long time now. Is that something that's really down to interpretation? So some reports that Chelsea have signed off that they would give him what he wants. Some journalists have said that equates to personal terms being agreed. Where do you see the current situation with Haaland at Chelsea being?
Yeah, I think we know that Haaland is Chelsea's #1 target if they are able to bring in a new striker this summer. Personal terms aren't going to be an issue. Chelsea will break the bank to sign Haaland. He's probably the most in-demand striker across the world right now after what he's done at Dortmund over the last couple of seasons. And I think Chelsea see this summer as an opportunity maybe to catch a march on their rivals to sign the Norwegian international. We all know Real Madrid, Barcelona would all love to sign Haaland, but their current financial state probably prevents them from making a move from Haaland right now as well. So Chelsea, they're in a good place. Champions League holders, finances aren't a problem when you've got the deep pockets of Roman Abramovich. And if they were to get Erling Haaland, it's just going to make them even stronger and put a real warning out to the rest of the Premier League that they mean business this summer. They want to wrestle that Premier League title away from Manchester City. So, yeah, personal terms won't be an issue. Agreeing a deal with Dortmund's probably going to be the biggest obstacle to Chelsea right now because Dortmund will be determined not to lose Haaland and Jadon Sancho in the same transfer window because no matter the money they bring in for those two, they're going to be two big players that are going to be really difficult to replace. And I just think this deal will be probably the transfer saga of the summer. Erling Haaland. We've also got the likes of Manchester City and Manchester United, I'm sure, who will be looking to be in the running for his signature. But yeah, Chelsea probably the ones at the front of the queue right now. But I just think this deal's looking a bit too complicated to happen this year. And I think next year when his release clause becomes active at Dortmund, we'll see a major chase for Haaland's signature with Chelsea and all the big clubs around Europe trying to sign probably the best young striker in the world.
Yeah, no, I see that as well. I think I look at this from a financials. Having worked in football finance for so long, it's one of my jobs in banking. There's a big story this morning about Arsenal having taken a loan from a bank that I may or may not used to have worked for to help them secure players. And I worked within that department of the organization, lending money to sports clubs to do transfers or whatnot. And it's sort of, so having spoke to a lot of the financiers at the football clubs at the times, these are the kind of transfers that are really intriguing because the Haaland deal is in the fee and the wages. It's Trevor Francis all over again. It's that groundbreaking deal that will, which is going to cost around £500,000 for Chelsea in its entirety. But it's what it does to the rest of Chelsea signings moving forward, all their contract renewals, and then the rest of football surrounding it, because everybody's money then gets increased. You move the barometer, you move the needle slightly higher. And I think that's what Chelsea have to weigh up. And I think that's where it comes down to now for me. Although Dortmund might still say no, I'm so intrigued to see a Chelsea bid. I'm so intrigued to see Chelsea put 120 for. I don't think they'll go straight at 150. Stick 120 million pound cash on the desk in Dortmund. Not literally, viewers, just that metaphor.
Bag, Terry.
Huge bag. It's a huge bag. And just to see what they do, because it's very easy to say we're going to say no matter what, and then the money's put in front of you, if that makes sense. It can often change things. So it's definitely an intriguing one with Chelsea. In relation to Chelsea, are linked to another player that everybody's linked to at the moment, and of course he used to play for Ireland, and he now plays for England, or at least he was part of the Ireland ranks. Declan Rice is linked with moves everywhere. What do you think's happening in that situation? Because I've heard Man United, I've heard Chelsea, I've even heard that Liverpool and City have made inquiries as to whether or not he would leave London. What's your understanding about Declan Rice?
Yeah, as you said, Declan Rice was a subject of major transfer speculation last summer. He was Frank Lampard's top target when he was in charge of Chelsea, and unfortunately, it seemed to be one of the reasons why Chelsea ended up getting rid of Lampard, because they couldn't get that deal done. Declan Rice, as you said, over the last couple of years, he's really come to the fore. He's established himself as a real key man in that West Ham side and broken into the England setup. And again, I think he's won the faith of Gareth Southgate. And I think proved his worth against Croatia on that opening Euro game. It showed how important he is to England and really developing into a top defensive midfielder, one of the best in Europe. For Declan Rice, again, when you get tournaments like the Euros that come up, this is a great chance to showcase his talents, which I think he's done so far. On the other side of that as well, he's away on international duty with all these England teammates from all these other clubs, and I'm sure they are in his ear going, "Oh, Declan, do you fancy a move to Man United? Do you fancy a move to Chelsea, Liverpool, or whoever?" I think Declan Rice could choose whatever club he wanted to go to right now. I'm sure all of those big clubs in the Premier League are probably thinking Declan Rice would be a major upgrade in our midfield. I think right now he's probably one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. He's only going to get better as well. I think ideally, if Declan Rice could move, he would love to go back to Chelsea where it all started for him. Obviously, it didn't happen for him on his first time, but he's bounced back and really done a great job at West Ham. The big concern here is West Ham can't really afford to let him go unless it's a crazy offer, and I'm talking probably £100 million. I think you would have to be bidding for West Ham to be thinking to lose Declan Rice. He's just such a talismanic figure for the club right now, for the fans, and I think if they were to sell him this summer for anything less than that, so especially to a Premier League rival, it would be a real sucker punch for the Hammers fans who love Declan Rice, and Declan Rice seems to enjoy playing for West Ham. But I think the time will come if West Ham aren't able to repeat the success they had last season, that Declan Rice will be looking to move on and be moving to a club challenging for honours on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I've heard something similar. I spoke to a contact of mine who's close to West Ham yesterday, and he said that no one knows exactly how much they would or wouldn't accept. He said the noise coming out of West Ham is we're not entertaining anything under £100 million. I heard that same thing, which is one of the reasons why even Chelsea, with all their riches, have almost sort of stepped back from Declan Rice because he's just expensive, and his wage demands we hear are going to be well over £200,000 a week, which would make him the second highest paid player at Chelsea if he signs. And I think that's a lot of money for the position he plays as sort of DM. It's extortionate amounts of money. Like I've never heard a player in his position be sort of touted around that kind of money before.
No, it's big money, and as you said, he's young, he's English, homegrown, so he fits all the criteria that all these top clubs are looking for right now. And as you said, 200 grand a week is big money for a player in that position. But we've seen other players get massive amounts of money, like David De Gea, the money that he's on at Manchester United as a goalkeeper, and I think that's pretty crazy. So Declan Rice in the market right now probably seeing that 200 grand a week, probably the going rate for somebody in his position. He's an England international. He's played at the highest level now in the Premier League for the last 2 seasons as well. So if he was to move to a top club, he is going to command those types of wages. And there's only certain clubs in the Premier League who can probably pay that. That's probably the Chelseas, the Manchester Cities, and the Manchester Uniteds.
Totally agree. We have some super chats here. First one says, should players be subject to reductions in their contracts dependent on performance and league position? I ask as a Arsenal fan and think it should.
Not too sure you'll have too many players agreeing to that one. Don't think so.
Yeah.
Once they've got their contracts signed and sealed, they want bonuses rather than reductions on their contracts. So I see his point. You obviously see players get bonuses for finishing in the Champions League places or winning the trophy. So a reduction, you'd be a brave man to try it, because I don't think many players would be willing to do it. But I like their way of thinking, because some of the salaries are just astronomical right now, and we all know how badly clubs have been affected by the COVID pandemic as well.
I think what clubs are now doing a lot more of is, okay, you want 300 grand a week, we'll give you 150 base, and then based on appearances, goals, the team winning, we'll give you more as that incentive. And that then also protects the club if a player's out injured for 6 months, because that's where it really is a killer for clubs. And they never say this publicly, but you sign a player on huge money and they get a bad injury, you're still paying them that salary for however long. And it's a very difficult one. But Satp, I totally get the sentiment, but you're never going to get an agent and a player agree to that initially up front. They're just going to say, they're never going to agree to it.
Or on somewhere else.
Exactly. Micah Johnson says, shout out to Pete. What is his opinion on City going in for Joao Felix and Bernardo Silva going the other way?
Yeah, this has got a real possibility, this one, of maybe happening. City have been long-term admirers of Joao Felix, who obviously arrived at Atletico Madrid from Benfica for a huge sum of money. It hasn't really worked out for the young Portugal forward, and I'm thinking he might need a change of scenery. I think a lot of this depends on City's pursuit of Harry Kane. We all know Harry Kane is Manchester City's top target this summer to replace Sergio Aguero. We know that's going to be a complicated deal to do, dealing with Tottenham, who are desperate to keep hold of Kane and do not really want to sell him to a Premier League rival as well. So Joao Felix is on that potential list of replacements for Sergio Aguero. And probably in the last few weeks, we've heard a few murmurings of Bernardo Silva being unhappy at Manchester City and is ready to move on. And Atletico Madrid are one of the clubs who are keeping a keen eye on his situation at the Etihad as well. I think also we've got Barcelona also interested in Bernardo Silva. So Pep Guardiola doesn't really want him to leave, and I don't think he'll be willing to sacrifice the Portuguese midfielder for Joao Felix, but real possibility that it's something that could be proposed by Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, Bernardo Silva. We spoke, of course, with I know you work with Dean, so he spoke about the other day that he really wants to go and play in La Liga. It's going to be an interesting one for City because they're obviously, of course, heavily linked with Harry Kane, which is again, I find the Harry Kane deal very similar to that of Haaland. It'd be gargantuan if it happens. A lot say unlikely because of the kind of money. He's even harder really than Haaland because of his age. There is that element of you're only going to get him for 3 or 4 years, maybe still at his peak. There's no sell-on value after that. Even with Haaland, if he does 4 or 5 great years and then he wants to move, if he's been great, you're going to get your money back at the very least. There's also Jack Grealish that's linked with a big move to Manchester City as well. Do you see? It's an interesting one. So Villa yesterday put a bid in for Emil Smith-Rowe. They've signed Emi Buendia. Do you see that, or have you heard that that's more a case of showing ambition to grow and build a team that includes Jack Grealish? Or do you get the sense this is more Villa looking at options because they feel Jack Grealish might leave?
Yeah, from my own perspective, I think they're planning for life without Jack Grealish right now. Getting the Buendia deal done early was a smart business by Villa, and also beating Arsenal to his signature was a big boost to them as well. I just think it's inevitable that Jack Grealish will leave Villa this summer. It seems all signals do point to Manchester City, and you're probably talking for a record transfer fee as well of probably close to £100 million for Grealish as well, who has lit up the recent England friendlies when he played just before the Euros here. And it was a bit of a surprise that he didn't start that game against Croatia last weekend for England, because I think he's been in really good form. But yeah, like I said, at these Euros, he's going to have some Manchester City teammates in his ear saying, come and join me at the Etihad, life's brilliant. And the prospect of working under Pep Guardiola is going to be hard to resist for Jack Grealish, who obviously is a boyhood Aston Villa fan, but he's probably thinking now the time is right. He's coming into the peak of his career to be going playing at the highest level of the Champions League and going to try and win these trophies as well. So if I was a betting man, I would say Jack Grealish is likely to end up at City, and probably that will mean that Harry Kane won't end up at Manchester City this summer, because I can't see them doing both of those deals this summer.
Yeah, it's doing both would be huge. It's so hard to see it being done. I suppose one element is if financial fair play gets relaxed or removed, that could change things, because if the Sheikh was allowed to spend his money however he wanted, they could do it in one afternoon, because they've got, when you think they've got that much money, that 300 million pounds, not that it would cost that much for both players in transfer fees, 250, 300 million pound is a drop in the ocean to his finances. And that's just that astronomical when you think about it. So it will be a tough one to get both of these players. And they certainly seem to be looking at both at Manchester City.
If that happens, Terry, I think we just give them the Premier League title now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because it's then what do Chelsea do? How did Chelsea respond to that? And I felt all along there's also this element of maybe Chelsea and City both sort of holding back to see who goes for that huge signing first. So if Chelsea sign Haaland as an example, I expect Man City, Jack Grealish, Harry Kane to be a bigger priority, because they suddenly know they're going to need, because Haaland will score 30 plus goals, 40 plus goals in all to Chelsea. There's no doubt. City then have to respond. And I suppose that knock-on effect could really change things. It's going to be intriguing to see how that actually plays out over the summer. But as you said, we could get to the end of the window and none of those big moves happen, and everybody maybe waits till next summer. Haaland's going to be available for 70 million, 75 million pounds next summer. So it makes it a real intriguing one. It really, really does. Viewers who are tuning in, make sure that like button is being hit, please. Just under 1,000 of you watching live right now. Let's get it past 500 likes while we're on the air. Members and super chatters, get your questions in that you may have for Pete around transfers that you're interested in hearing about, because I might not ask about everything that's on your mind, because I don't actually know how to read people's minds. I want to touch on Man United. We'll stay in Manchester for a minute. Of course, the Jadon Sancho deal is always on everybody's lips. What's happening? What's going on? Where's your head at with this deal right now? Where do you see this deal being? Is it close, like some are reporting? Is it still weeks and weeks away? How do you feel about this deal?
I think it's getting closer. I think we're all probably fed up with the Jadon Sancho deal because it's been going on probably for the last 12 months or so. But yeah, it's been a transfer saga. I think it's going to come to a successful conclusion this summer at last. I think Dortmund are resigned to the fact that the England winger is going to leave and probably return to the Premier League. Manchester United leading the race for him, as they have been since last summer when they thought they could get a deal done, but obviously couldn't agree terms with Dortmund for his signature. His price tag has dropped as well, so I think United think they can land him for around 70 million, while Dortmund are holding out for 80. So not a massive gap between the two sides right now. So I think this deal should get done. Sancho's keen to come back to the Premier League. I think he's keen to come to Manchester United as well. And we all know he has been a priority for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for the last 12 months now to play on that right side of midfield and provide the ammunition for Manchester United's forwards. Again, he's away at the Euros, so I don't think anything imminent is going to happen. Probably after the tournament, depending on how far England go in the tournament, I'd expect this deal to ramp up, and United will be keen to get it done as early as possible. But we all know Dortmund, they're a hard side to break down in transfer negotiations as well. So it'll very much be on their terms, I think, for this deal to happen. But yeah, finally, we should see Jadon Sancho in a Manchester United shirt this summer, unless something dramatic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of other deals at United, Kieran Trippier's name's come up a bit. Raphael Varane is another player linked with the club. What are the likely deals in your mind that Man United will try to complete over the course of the summer?
Yeah, I think they'll be looking to strengthen the defence. Right back, Kieran Trippier appears to be the top target, but this one seems to be running into a few complications right now. I think they made a really miserly bid for Kieran Trippier at the start of this month. I think around £10 million to Atletico Madrid, and that was never going to get the England international. He had a great season for Atletico, helping them win La Liga, and he's gone away to the Euros with England as well. From my understanding, I think Manchester United got the wires crossed on this deal a bit. They thought he maybe only had a year to run on his contract at Atletico, thinking they could get him on the cheap, but it appears he's got 2 years left on his deal at the Spanish club as well. So Atletico Madrid, they're in no rush to send Kieran Trippier out the exit door. Diego Simeone relies on him for that right-back position. And as I said, 2 years left on his deal. He's got a €40 million release clause. If he is to leave, Atletico Madrid are saying, you meet that release clause, which works out about £34 million, and you can have Kieran Trippier. Trippier is keen to come back to the Premier League and Manchester United, but I just think the longer this one goes on, and if Atletico are demanding that release clause to be met, I think Man United might walk away from it.
That's an interesting one. In terms of other areas at Man United, so Raphael Varane has been a player that we've been linked with. There haven't been many central midfielders. Saul Niguez's name has been mentioned. Where else are Man United looking to strengthen, and who are the sort of top candidates, sort of in your understanding and conversations that you've had?
Yeah, midfield. I think defensive midfield's been a top priority for United probably for the last 12 months. Nemanja Matic ain't getting any younger. He's not playing as many games as well. And obviously a lot of Man United fans aren't big fans of Fred, who I thought had a decent season for Solskjaer's side last term. But again, I don't think he wins a lot of favour with the Red Devils in that respect. So I think Declan Rice probably figures quite highly on their wanted list if they were to bring in a midfielder who can play in that defensive midfield role as well. As you mentioned, Saul Niguez, who can play in various roles in midfield, attack, or maybe sit in front of the back four as well and dictate play. Talk that he could be allowed to leave Atletico Madrid as well, but I think there's going to be competition for his signature. The likes of Chelsea are also interested, and possibly Paris Saint-Germain as well, maybe even Juventus. But yeah, United, I think defensive midfielder is a position, and I still wouldn't rule them out. Maybe trying to get Declan Rice, and who knows, maybe even offer Jesse Lingard in part exchange after his successful loan spell at West Ham last season.
Yeah, a lot of people expected that to be the case with Declan Rice, that United would try and do a sort of player plus cash deal. I suppose a big part of that is Jesse Lingard, because he's kind of mooted as saying he wants Champions League football. And I was talking to, again, same connection at West Ham, who said that they understand why Lingard wants Champions League football. It would come down to who comes in for him. If no one who has Champions League as an option comes in for Lingard, and Man United don't, tell him he's not part of their plans, I think then his head might change and say, okay, well, West Ham was good to me, I'm happy to go back there, and that deal might move. So especially with that sort of high price that West Ham are asking for, 80, 90, 100 million, as you've quoted earlier on in the show, United have got to get that price down, because it's just, I can't see them signing Sancho and dropping another 80 plus million pound on a player. They've got to try and get that price down in some way, shape or form. You mentioned Raphael Varane there. The reports around Raphael Varane change every day. Sometimes Man United leading the race, then he's rejected Man United for Paris Saint-Germain. There was reports yesterday evening that he was now going to sign a new deal and stay at Real Madrid. The news around him seems to fluctuate every single which way. And I don't think a resolution for Raphael Varane will happen until after the Euros. He's too important to France. He's too sort of focused on that. I don't think he'll be considering any of those elements there. Where is that current situation as far as you're aware, in terms of an English club selling him? Because Chelsea have also been heavily linked with him as well.
Yeah, I think there's definite English interest in Raphael Varane, as you said. A top defender. He's been for many years now for Real Madrid and for France as well. But I don't know. I think this has been quite a smart move by his representatives. I think they've got this interest out there from the Manchester Uniteds, the Chelsea's, also Paris Saint-Germain, maybe to drive up a new deal at Real Madrid. And I think the importance he is to Real Madrid right now has just got even bigger with the news that Sergio Ramos is leaving this summer. So I don't think Real Madrid can afford to see Raphael Varane leave and Sergio Ramos leave in the same transfer window, because that's going to leave them really short at the back. And it's hard to replace these players, because if you're going to replace stars like these, it's going to cost you big money. And I don't think Real Madrid are in a position right now to be able to afford those big fees to replace these top stars with other top stars. So if I were Real Madrid, I would give Raphael Varane what he wants right now, because he's going to be a key figure in that Real Madrid defence next season, especially without Sergio Ramos. So I think the interested clubs in Varane will probably be disappointed that he will end up staying at Real Madrid and signing a new deal. But I know for a fact his agents were in London last month talking to interested clubs, including Manchester United, just to see what was out there and what was on offer. But I think in the end, Real Madrid will probably tie him down to a new contract.
Interesting. And one of our presenters here, Anita, currently working at The Athletic this next 2 or 3 months. Congratulations to you, Anita. Said, any news on Ramos? As we know he's leaving Real Madrid, and everybody's desperate to know where he's going to go. And what's your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, it's going to be a big transfer, this one. I don't think many people expected Ramos to leave, because I think this was most people's thinking was all these rumours about his future were just to get a longer contract out of Real Madrid in the end. I know they were only offering him a 1-year extension. He was holding out for possibly 2-3 years from Madrid, thinking he would get this because of his service to the club. He's been a stalwart for Real Madrid since his arrival from Sevilla in 2005. Lots of reports in Spain suggesting he could end up going back to Sevilla, where it all started for him. But I'm not too sure on that one. Even though he's a free agent, he still comes with a big fee, Sergio Ramos, with his wages and everything else, and he will be looking probably a long-term contract. I think for any neutral fan, I think we would love to see him in the Premier League. I think he'd be a great addition to the Premier League. He's character. He knows what he's doing. He's one of those top professionals at the top of his game. Probably one of the most decorated defenders of the modern era, and one of the best defenders of the modern era as well, at what he's achieved at Real Madrid. So it would be great to see him come to the Premier League. And we saw Chelsea had big success bringing in aging centre-back on a free transfer in the summer in Thiago Silva. So who's to say maybe a Chelsea or Manchester United might not offer Ramos that chance, because he might come with a bit of baggage with everything else, and he's not getting any younger. But what experience and quality he could add to your squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the news is quite fresh. The Sevilla news, I can't say. He's going to go somewhere now and get a nice, in my opinion, he's going to go to a good club. but he's going to get a nice, big, hefty
signing on fee.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice signing on fee, huge salary. So it's going to have to be a team that can afford it. I'm a Man United fan. Would I want to see Sergio Ramos? I don't know. And I say that because I just feel like he's such a great centre-back. For me, he goes into that echelon. When you speak about European greats, he goes into that category of great defenders. He goes into the category with the Maldinis for me. With what he has won as a player domestically and internationally, he's one of the greatest. There is no doubt about it. But I get Bastian Schweinsteiger vibes that you could be signing someone on huge money who is just completely past his best, and actually over a year or two period, you're not going to see the Ramos that we saw win 3 Champions Leagues in a row. Win World Cups with Spain, and I think it could be an investment that a club makes, but I think it could end up leaving a bit of egg on people's faces.
Yeah, it's a possibility of that one. But then you look on the flip side, Terry Edison Cavani. A lot of people were negative about him signing on a free transfer, but he came in and really impressed for Manchester United, especially in the second half of last season. And the experience that he can bring, and young players looking up to him as well. I think Sergio Ramos, if he walks in that dressing room, he's got your respect straight away for what he's done in the game. And that United side is quite young in some areas as well. So I think he would definitely bring experience and quality. And United are having that problem right now of just getting over the line and winning trophies again, and maybe challenging at the top end of the title. And if you were to bring in something like a Sergio Ramos, I think that would help close that gap, because he's a winner. That's plain and simple. He's just a winner.
And that is true. I was fuming at the Cavani deal because I thought it smelt of what's the chap we signed from Monaco on loan for 2 years.
Falcao.
I don't know why I forgot his name. He left. I just had those vibes. I think as Man United fans, we're very jaded. We've seen so many signings that we thought were going to work that haven't. Post Fergie, that whenever we're linked with someone who isn't sort of like in their prime, it's like, oh, what are we doing here? But it certainly could work. There's no doubt about that. Just quickly before we come to the end, Liverpool Football Club, very hard to get transfer news out of Liverpool. We know that they're a very tightly run ship. 2 names that I see come up. First one, Patson Daka, linked with a move there, but also Isak. Isak for Sweden, linked with a move to Liverpool. There's also a German midfielder whose name now eludes me. I know he plays for Mönchengladbach.
Florian
Neuhaus. I've seen all their names linked to Liverpool in recent days. Any insight or any thoughts on that at all?
I think there is interest in Patson Daka, the Salzburg striker, and obviously Liverpool have had good relations with Salzburg over the last few years. They signed Minamino from the Austrian champions a couple of seasons ago as well. Obviously that move didn't work out as probably Liverpool expected it to, with the Japanese international spending the second half of last season on loan at Southampton. But Daka, he's a prolific goal scorer, although it is in the Austrian league. He has scored a lot of goals. He did score 2 goals in a pre-season friendly against Liverpool last summer as well. So that maybe brought him to the attention of Jurgen Klopp as well. But I think there's a lot of clubs interested in Daka as well. We've got Chelsea who have been looking at him. I've also heard Leicester closely possibly looking at him as a long-term replacement for Jamie Vardy, while I've heard the striker himself has already rejected interest from West Ham and Monaco. And if he was to leave Salzburg this summer, he does fancy a move to the Premier League. So that will give Liverpool hope. But I think Liverpool's transfer business probably depends now on them offloading players. So if they were to sell a Divock Origi and get some money in, then maybe they can go and get a Daka. And obviously, when we're talking about Neuhaus from Mönchengladbach, he's away with Germany at the Euros. He's probably seen as a replacement for Gini Wijnaldum, who left and joined Paris Saint-Germain on a free. But Liverpool, I think their finances are going to be pretty tight this year. They've already spent big on Konate from RB Leipzig to come in at centre-back. So maybe Liverpool will have to be smart in this window and try and generate funds before they can make any more signings. Yeah,
it certainly seems to be Liverpool's model, that sort of, it's like the old-fashioned saying at the front of a nightclub, one out, one in. Yeah, sort of approach.
Your name's not down.
Yeah, if your name ain't on the list, you're not. That saying's always confused me as well. It should have been one. They used to say one in, one out. I was like, shouldn't it be one out, one in? Because actually, you don't. But there we go. Thanks for the update in relation to that. There's lots going on, I think, at the moment. Lots of noise. Arsenal seemingly being the club that are looking to kind of push a number of deals forward, as you mentioned. Viewers, we're coming towards the end of the show now. A lot of you are asking for Hakimi updates, Haaland updates, Man United midfield updates. They've already been spoken about in the show. So if you're brand new to tuning in, you only just joined in, when we end the show, it will re-upload onto YouTube and you'll be able to go through it and watch it again from the beginning. All of that has been touched on by Peter today in relation to that. There's a comment here from David who says, that's a Woodward signing. Ramos, no. How old is he? Punch-drunk boxer in the Premier League. You will get some fan insight in here, which is amazing. What about Kimpembe to Chelsea? It's from a Chelsea fan here. Is that a rumor you've heard about at all?
To be honest, haven't heard much of that. Obviously a talented player. He's at the Euros with France right now as well, and been a good player for Paris Saint-Germain over the years. My own opinion here is, well, I don't think they'll be too willing to let him leave the French capital. I think he's going to be a key man for Mauricio Pochettino next season. So although Chelsea probably are looking for a centre-half, I don't see them going for Kimpembe right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've not heard that one, and I hear a lot of transfer rumors. I spend the majority of my day reading them and searching them and looking at them because I enjoy it. I actually love the transfer window. For me, it's legitimately my most favorite time of the year around football.
More than Christmas.
Yeah, well, it's like with football. Football's pressure. Like there's always pressure with football. I don't feel disappointed really when we miss out on players in the sense of it's just like, okay, we'll find someone else. Where when we lose a football match, it's horrible. So I kind of enjoy this part of football because I find it less serious, if that makes sense. It's a little bit of fun. Yeah. It's really good to see people debate over, what will a player do for my club? Is he good enough? Is he not? I love making predictions on who's going to be a flop and who's going to be brilliant. And then 9 times out of 10, we're all wrong. So yeah, I absolutely love the transfer window. It's brilliant here. Someone here says Fabrizio has tweeted Bissouma is going. I don't know what this is about there. That doesn't make any sense to me. Fabrizio hasn't tweeted anything about Bissouma as far as I can see. But there we go. People also write random stuff when we're live. Sometimes they make up rumors to see if they can throw us.
Keeping us on our toes.
Absolutely. I think that's everything we scheduled to cover today. I just want to make sure we haven't missed something because I'll make sure we went through all of that. Oh, the final one I wanted to ask actually about Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Some reports that Man United have offered him a contract. Any insight or thoughts on where he could go? Could he come back to Man United?
I think a lot of Man United fans would love him to come back. My own opinion, I just can't see it. I think Manchester United have moved on from Ronaldo now. We all know still he's 36, but what a player. He definitely wouldn't be a boxer coming back, a punch-drunk boxer like that other viewer said about Sergio Ramos, because Ronaldo keeps himself in unbelievable shape, breaking more records at the Euros with Portugal with another 2 goals to make him the all-time record goal scorer. Bit of doubt about his future at Juventus. That move hasn't worked out, probably as the way the club or Ronaldo saw it working. He was brought in to help them win the Champions League. That hasn't happened. But I just think with Allegri coming back to Juventus this summer, I think we'll see Ronaldo end up staying at Juventus. He's got 1 year left on his contract. I think a dream scenario for United fans would be for Ronaldo to return after his previous success at Old Trafford. But I just think financially, I think it'd be a bit too much for Manchester United to do now, especially for somebody who's coming to the end of his career, and what a career it's been. But I think if maybe Ronaldo wants a new challenge, maybe he might fancy a bit of Paris Saint-Germain in France. He's done it everywhere else. He's been at Portugal, he's been in England, he's been in Spain, he's been in Italy now. So maybe a bit of France might be of his liking. So I think if he were to leave Juventus, probably Paris Saint-Germain's the most likely destination.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And absolutely, a few people asking about managers of Palace and Everton. We've come to the end of the show now. What I will say, when I saw Rafa Benitez name linked to Everton yesterday, I couldn't believe it. I thought, one, why would they do that? And 2, why would he? I know rivalry is kind of dying in football a little bit with younger fans. There's a little less sort of partisan tribalism. But for me, I rate Pep Guardiola and Klopp. I never want to see him as Man United managers just because you've managed my rivals. I imagine Liverpool, Champions League winning manager of Liverpool joining Everton. That's going to be an interesting one to say the least. No doubt about it. Everyone who's tuned in today, a massive thank you to each and every single one of you. Pete, let everybody know where they can find you across socials, please.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SportsPeto.
There we go. So go check out Pete's Twitter account. We'll put a link in the description as well for that. Make sure you've hit the like button, subscribed, turn on the bell notifications. We're back later on today, of course, covering and reacting to all the games at Euro 2020 and any breaking transfer news. And I'm sure there's going to be some. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon.